Hey, so little wolf. How are you, sweetheart? Ooh. Sorry, my doctor's surgery just texted me. Oh my god. You're right, Mick. Up to Vila. Sorry, I just got a message. How cute is this fucking thing? Ah! I want it. It's fucking adorable. Hey, guess who? You alright, brainless, Sydney? They have it in pink too. Not a fan of pink, but that is, yeah, kind of cute. Well, I know what pointless shit I'm going to be buying soon. Hang on. Is that a limited edition one? No, phew. Well, that's good. You're getting to charge your stuff, Wolfie. Let us know if we can help. I don't know how. We'll try to do something, though. Like, we're not just going to leave one of our own up shit creek without a paddle, though. That just ain't how we fucking play. It really isn't. Oh, you're right, David. How are you? Still undoing the Lord's work. Hey, Knitting Gamer. Hey, Hatman. You're right, hon. Oh, thank you. Oh. I mean, if he did die, though, would they not say something to reap in more money? Like, I don't know. They'd be like, he's died. God has called him back to heaven. He's a martyr now. Oh my God. Yay. Yeah, that's true. But Love Has Won was like a really small cult. Like, tiny. Wasn't it? Oh. Oh, perfect time as ever. What's happening? No clue. Oh, so David here does work exposing cults, and I met him through the African Humanist on her channel, and yeah, so they're in the same vein, exposing like the extremist cults, within like Baptist, Southern Baptist, and overseas in other countries, I think it is. And yeah, just a load of bullshit. Like bad people, tax fraud, all that sort of shit. Hey, Blue, you're right. Right. I found a few good ones. Where is it? One of which I was really upset because like the series just stopped. It ended like it should carry on somewhere, but it just didn't. Like, which is upsetting. Hang on. What is happening here? No, I don't want you to update. Shit, press the wrong button. Oops. Hey! Oh, hey, Tia hun. Like, yeah, I was a bit gutted. They just stopped posting 2 years ago and that was it. And it was like, boom, gone, done. Kind of sucks because it was really interesting. So I'm going to start with a kind of funny one in a weird way. So this is from, again, Reddit No Sleep. And the user is Rhaegar with a 3 instead of an E. And this is called It's Happening Again. It's happening again. The words struggled to leave my mother's mouth as she stood shaking in the kitchen. My brother, Jimmy, and I eyed her curiously. Before we could respond, my father stood up and asked her, "Are you sure?" His typically charismatic and whimsical tone buried beneath a new voice, built from panic and concern. "Yes, I'm sure," she replied. My father stood still for a moment in disbelief, whispered something to my mother, then turned to face us. "Boys, there's a man coming to town. You're going to see him around. Maybe in the street, maybe on a park bench, maybe even in the corner of your bedroom at night." I looked at my brother and was met with a mirrored reflection of confusion. We looked back to my father. "Listen to me, boys. No matter what he looks like this time, do not mention anything about his appearance." My mind raced, unsure if my parents were losing their collective minds or if this was some sort of out-of-character joke they were playing. I stood up, breaking the silence. "Dad, what are you talking about? Who is coming to town?" My father approached us. He placed one hand on Jimmy's shoulder and the other on mine. "I know this doesn't make a lot of sense, or any sense for that matter, but I need you to both be strong and mature for me, okay? If you see a man around town that looks different, promise me you'll not say anything about how he looks. Not to me, not to your mum, not to each other or anyone. Not even a whisper. Got it?" Jimmy and I looked to each other and back to Dad. We nodded. The next few days proceeded like normal. We went to school, came home, and played outside with our friends. Mum and Dad never brought up that night. For some reason, we never felt like bringing it back up to them. I went to bed that content, not knowing that tomorrow would lead to the most horrific experience of my life. The school bus stopped at the corner. Jimmy and I raced home to drop off our backpacks and grabbed our baseball gear. We were meeting the other guys at the Diamond for a pickup game. The weather was perfect. I'll never forget that. Jimmy and I rode as fast as we could pedal down the street and onto the sidewalk. We arrived at the Diamond to find the other guys already waiting for us. We ditched our bikes and sprinted to the field. When it was my turn to bat, I recited the words my dad had taught me. Hands back, eyes on the ball, swing through the ball. I repeated my mantra as the ball came in. The second the bat made contact, I knew that I had crushed it. The ball soared into the sky to the depths of left field. Mike was fast, but even as the fastest kid on the block, he couldn't catch this one. He sprinted towards the ball as it came crashing back down to earth as I ran the bases. I grinned ear to ear as I rounded third to home. Then the cheers from my team ended abruptly, as the world seemed to pause and silence. We all looked in unison towards left field. The baseball sat at the feet of a man, at least what resembled a man. Mike stood and stared, glancing back to us. We all inched closer for a better look. The thing that stood in the field wore a black suit jacket, black pants, and a top hat. But it wasn't a man at all. It was, in all respect, a balloon. Someone had tied together a series of balloons to create a sort of balloon animal human being and dressed it in clothes. The bulbous yellow head was oversized with big red balloon eyes and a big blue grin. It had a green nose sticking out like a ripe cucumber and what looked to be drawn-on ears. Mike burst out laughing, breaking the silence, a sound I'll never forget. He dropped to the grass and rolled around in hysterics. He got back up and stared the balloon creature in its inflated eyeballs. This is the man our parents have been scared of? A fucking balloon? His roaring laughter continued. Despite it being very windy that day, the balloon man didn't even flinch. It just stood, grinning its blue grin. Mike poked the balloon man with his finger and jolted back, grabbing his finger in pain. Jimmy tugged me by the shirt. I think we should go home. I nodded in agreement. We rode home in silence. At dinner we did not mention the incident. Tension filled the kitchen like our parents already knew. That night, a shrill scream filled the street and jolted me out of bed. I ran downstairs, Jimmy tailing behind me. My dad yelled for us to stay inside. We didn't listen. Mike's mum stood outside screaming and pacing the street. Lights from the neighbouring houses turned on one by one until we saw Mike's mother held something in her arms. The neighbours stood from their lawns and gasped when they saw. She was holding a balloon version of Mike. It was wearing his clothes. She continued her screaming, demanding to know where her son was, pleading with the neighbours. She dropped to her knees, squeezing the balloon impersonation in her arms. The pop echoed throughout the street. And Mike's mother sat on the pavement, drenched in her son's blood. And yeah, that was that one. Yep. What a particularly whimsical eldritch abomination. I know, right? Just the parents so scared. They can't talk about it. They don't know. They can't say anything. They don't know what he's going to look like. And they're like, just don't talk about it. Just don't talk about it. Don't say anything. Not even like, you could say that we saw him, just not what he looked like, right? So you could be like, yeah, we saw it. He touched it. He said what looked like. Could you say that or not? Can you just not mention it at all? Weird. Right. This is from Creepypasta. And this is user Live for Scary Stories. Better yet, why don't you go ahead and edit out what you saw? Hey, Lucifer. You alright, Lucian? Hey, bro guy. Right. So yeah, Live for Scary Stories. And this is called The Lottery. I woke up this morning to a blaring sound of an emergency alarm on my phone. It warned of an impending nuclear threat. Await further instructions, it said as my phone screen turned black. My husband Tom woke up with a jolt next to me. What the hell is this? He asked as he read the same message I had just received. Still in shocking confusion, I really wasn't even afraid. Not yet, at least. We waited in silence for a few minutes before another notification popped up on our otherwise inactive phones. Citizens of New York, please do not panic. We have fail-safes in place for such an event. The message went on to explain that there was an escape shuttle, fully equipped to house thousands, a hydrophonic system, a waste recycling system. The shuttle was designed to evacuate us off the planet to a base set up on the moon. So they said. They called the shuttle the Ark. This has to be a scam, Tom said. Some crazy hacker, right? His voice sounded less than sure with every word. Await further instructions, came the disembodied voice on the phone. Adrenaline hit me as I sprang into action, trying to pack supplies we might need if this was real. But it wasn't, right? This can't be real, was all I could hear myself think until my phone lit up again. Nothing but a green screen. Congratulations, the robotic voice said. You have been randomly selected for a seat on the shuttle. Directions will be sent to your phone. You have 1 hour to reach the docking station. Good luck, citizen. When I looked up from my phone, I saw Tom glaring at me. I realized then his phone screen was red. We're sorry. You have not been selected for a spot on the Ark. Your obligation to humanity will allow the survivors a chance to continue the species in the event of a full-scale nuclear war. We thank you for your sacrifice. What the fuck is going on? He said. I couldn't even find the words. I can't go, Tom. I can't leave you here. sobbing on the end of the bed as I looked at the despair in his eyes. "No, we're going. Maybe I'll find a way to sneak in, but I won't let you give up like that." He held me for a brief moment before the sounds of chaos interrupted. Shaking violently, I forced my frozen body to look out the window at the complete desecration of society beneath me. I watched in horror as my sweet 70-year-old neighbour smashed a frying pan over her husband's head, picked up his phone and ran. Two brothers from next door were clawing and biting at each other, wrestling on the ground over a phone with a clear green screen. "We need to go," Tom said. Without hesitation, I followed him to the garage. As soon as the door was opened, a mob of our friends and neighbours swarmed the car, stunned as my window smashed suddenly, showering me with glass, as Josh, from down the street, began trying to drag me out of the car. Tom floored it. Slam, crunch, screams. I couldn't look back, but I couldn't shut out the thought of the mangled bodies of our neighbours whose bones I could feel crushing under our tyres. The GPS on my phone began to speak, giving us directions to the Ark. I watched helplessly as sons attacked their own mothers, husbands attacking their wives, teenagers, even children. The entire neighbourhood had descended into complete madness. Gunfire, screams, blood, chaos. A walking nightmare. Tom floored it, daring anyone in his path. I had never imagined what panic could really do to otherwise sane and decent human beings. But this was a scene straight from hell. Survival, animal instinct. These people had become no more than the most primal instincts they possessed, willing to do anything to survive. Then finally, we found our destination. A cage, a maze, a series of fences guarded by military. They were herding people through the gates like sheep, people trying to shove their way forward. I watched as children were trampled under panicked feet. I watched as the uniformed men opened fire. A man on a loudspeaker continued his warning, forcing the mass of bodies to fall in line. The guards were checking phones before letting anyone enter the gates. I listened in horror to the desperate cries of families being torn away from each other over nothing more than a green or red screen. "Tom, I can't do this. How can I leave you like this? I wouldn't be able to live with myself. Whatever happens, I want us to face it together. I love you." He pulled me in, kissed me gently on the forehead and held me. Then he whispered something in my ear. "Forgive me, Maggie." Blackness. Instant blackness. Before I could even regain my composure, I was rolling down a hill, slamming into rocks, gaining speed until I finally reached the bottom, hard. I heard the sickening sound of the bones in my wrist cracking. I couldn't believe what just happened. I reached my phone. It was gone. That selfish, evil fuck. He stole my phone. The realization crushed me. I could hear a guttural scream from far away, yet I knew it was my own. Dissociation and adrenaline set in as I tried to claw my way up the embankment, only to continue sliding back down, watching helplessly as the man I loved, now the coward who betrayed me, appeared more and more distant as he walked towards the shuttle. I dropped to the ground in disbelief. I couldn't cry, I couldn't scream, I couldn't feel. Completely numb, I wasn't even afraid anymore. Having fully accepted my fate, I just laid there, waiting for death. The only emotion I could muster was an insane, uncontrollable laugh. I laughed as I watched the massive doors close on the Ark. I laughed as I watched it powering up, getting louder and louder. I laughed as I watched it suddenly explode into thousands of little pieces and rain whatever was left of Tom back down to earth. When I finally found the strength to move, I looked around at the world, screaming and sobbing, waiting, waiting, waiting. But the nuclear explosion never came. In the weeks to follow, we found out the truth. The event took place in every major city on the planet. It had been known for a long time that overpopulation could end humanity for good. But we all chose to avoid the thought. Acting blissfully ignorant to unavoidable truths was something humans have always been good at. The ones who made it to the ark, to their promised salvation, were the real losers of the lottery, chosen to sacrifice themselves for those of us who remain. It seems the easiest way to take out such a large number of population was to walk them willingly to their own slaughter, killing anyone else who got in their way. In my newfound sense of nihilism, I've pondered so many other ways the same could have been accomplished, but it worked. It worked well. And with minimal damage to the planet itself. The planet that is now on its way to recovery. But here we are now, trying to rebuild the pieces of our own undoing, of the guilt and the shame, of the gruesome murders and the deaths of our loved ones. We are the survivors, but are we the lucky ones? We will now live in a world of paranoia, a world where we know if it ever comes down to it again, it's brother against brother, husband against wife. Every fake smile and wave, every friendly gesture from a neighbour, a mask hiding something truly horrifying underneath. We all like to think we're good people, but what are we really? When being good comes down to something as simple as a red or green ticket to survival. I thought that one was really cool. I like the sort of crisscross ending. And hey, Quasar, you're right, hun. Like, such a good change in the ending. Yeah. You're right, Captain Cactus. Like, most people only care about themselves or theirs and their own. If you're lucky. But how many people will be like, that got a green screen? I'm like, well, yeah, do you know what? Actually, I'm really sick. Something like that. Be like, do you know what? Yo, I see a family getting split up at the gates. Have my phone. There you go. No, your family's not going to be split up. Because, like, what am I going to really do with the betterment of the future of mankind? People aren't going to be that selfless. Not really. I agree with that sentiment, Captain Cactus. Hate everyone equally. Or at least disdain. No. Yeah, this one is a long one. And it is by the same person that the first story was from. It's happening again with the lovely balloon man thing. Hey James, you alright, hon? Yeah, I don't know if I'd stay behind, but then again, I've got a tiny human to worry about. And then again, I don't know if I'd send just her on her own, because, like, yikes. If it's just random people, who knows who's gone on? Like, fucking criminals or nonsense could have gone on. I'm not leaving her alone with people like that. Fuck that for a laugh. Jesus Christ, this is too much thinking for this late at night. Sorry, my health has not been exactly fucking brilliant lately. Hang on a sec. Where is the... Oh, for fuck's sake. Hang on. Yeah, my health has been a bit shitty lately. Pain. Then had to go to no A&E, urgent care, that's the one. Got a random infection that they don't really know much about. They don't know why it keeps happening. So that'd be fun. Nah, you're right, cause I being actually sick, unlike Shani, I get medicine given to me. Right, this is again by user Rhaegar. It's called They Came from the Woods. Has anyone heard of Shadow Creek Mountain, VA? My sister and her boyfriend moved there in March. No one has been able to get a hold of either of them since. These emails from her showed up in my inbox yesterday, and they are dated from over a month ago. The authorities have been useless in the investigation. I'm begging you, if you have any information, please help me find my sister. The emails are below. From Aubrey E. Garton to Jamie A. Garton. 6th of March 2020, 6:26 p.m. Hey sis, well, Hunter and I just finished unpacking. I can't wait to send you a bunch of pictures of this place. I'm currently on my second bottle of Cabernet. I'm listening to some old records I found in the attic. I'm very cultured, in case you didn't already know. Would you have ever thought of your little sister would be living in a cabin out in the woods? I can't even remember the last time we left DC. It's for sure going to take some getting used to. Either way, Dr. Gold thinks it's the best thing for Hunter's PTSD therapy. And I can't help but agree with her. Hunter has still been having his quirks lately, but I think the change of scenery and the fresh air will help. I've been making sure he is taking his medication despite all the "Ugh, I'm fine, Aubrey" responses I get. Our drive into Shadow Creek Mountain was interesting, to say the least. We stopped for gas at the edge of town, and there wasn't anyone even working there. 12:30 p.m. on a Friday, and the place was completely empty. Can you believe that? In fact, the only person we saw was some old lady standing in the middle of the road. Hunter probably would have ran her over if I hadn't screamed bloody murder. Gunnar almost flew through the windshield, poor dog. When we drove past her, she only smiled and waved despite the fact that our Jeep almost flattened her. Plus Hunter yelling like a deranged lunatic. Small town manners, I suppose. I know we just got here, but I'm excited for Hunter's friend's surprise visit. Even Shay, the girl next door I was telling you about. So much for quarantine. I guess in a way we are socially distancing ourselves from civilized society. The internet and cell service is kind of spotty, but I'm just chilling with the record player and local radio. Speaking of that, I heard on the news that some hiker went missing a couple of days ago around here. Hunter said there aren't any bears or wildlife to be scared of. Either way, let's just say I'm happy we're not intense. Anyways, I'll send you those pics tomorrow. Love you. From Aubrey, etc. to Jamie. 7th of March 2020. 11:26 p.m. Hey. Today was eventful, to say the least. Hunter was pissed off right from when he woke up. Worse than I've seen him in a while. I am hoping that it's just temporary with all the recent changes. That can be tough on anyone, you know. Last night we tried to have some alone time. TMI, I know, I'm sorry. But there were some difficulties. Hunter got so pissed off he punched the bathroom mirror and cracked it. I've never seen him explode like that. It legitimately freaked me out. He immediately calmed down and apologized after. Hunter is still blaming his medication. He tried to call Dr. Gold to see if he could switch medication brands or something, but she didn't answer. I told him it wasn't a big deal and we have lots of time for practice up here. I took Gunnar for a walk through the woods. It was a nightmare. He growled and snapped at every noise. He is usually a giant German Shepherd-shaped teddy bear, but he has been ultra-protective the last 2 days. I think he is getting in touch with his wolf ancestors. Also, it's insanely foggy up here. That is normal for the mountains. It's eerie, to say the least. When we got back home, Hunter was in a much better mood than the night before. Believe it or not, we encountered another human today. Shadow Creek Mountain has life. Crazy, right? Hunter and I went to the grocery store to grab light bulbs since the cabin only has 3 working ones. This grocery store has barely anything in it. I'm not sure how people eat in this town. The clerk was an older lady named Marianne. I know this because she introduced herself like 100 times. She profusely apologized for not having light bulbs and promised to have them ordered. She was super nice and it reminded me of the woman we almost hit yesterday. The oddest thing though. Right when we left the store, Marianne flipped the lights off and put the close sign. I don't really understand the working hours in this town. But it gets even better. After dinner, an old married couple showed up at the door. and brought over a plate of brownies to welcome us to the neighbourhood, even though they live half a mile away. So adorable. The couple was none other than Marianne herself and her husband. She must have early Alzheimer's or some sort of memory issue, because she didn't recognise us at all despite seeing us earlier that morning. For some reason, Gunnar would not stop barking at them. So embarrassing. I felt terrible. I do not know what's gotten into that dog. Hunter won't eat any of the brownies because he doesn't trust food from strangers. But I've seriously had like 5, lol. Anyways, I will email you tomorrow. Gunnar is growling at the back door like something is behind it, and it's very distracting. P.S. Hunter's friends get here tomorrow. You should come visit soon too. Love you, Aubrey. From Aubrey E. Garton to Jamie A. Garton. 8th of March, 3:23 p.m. Hey Jamie, we need to talk. There is something seriously wrong with Hunter. Wes, Jessie and Shay showed up this morning. It started off fine but has gone downhill fast. I don't know what to do. Hunter seemed happy when they showed up. We all started drinking pretty early and having fun. We grilled and played football in the yard. Wes and Jessie were chill, but Hunter was taking the game way too seriously and almost started a fight with the other guys. It was really embarrassing. Eventually he calmed down and apologised, but it definitely put everyone in a weird mood. All the guys went on a beer run after lunch. They said the grocery store had virtually nothing in it, even though it was fully stocked yesterday. They were able to get beer, but said all of the shelves were bare except for some mouldy bread and cleaning supplies. I asked if Marianne was working, but the only employee they saw was a middle-aged guy who wouldn't stop staring at them and asking questions. They said he seemed pissed off they weren't locals. After they got back, he went into the woods and shot targets with Hunter's rifle. I don't really know how to explain what happened next. Hunter went into some sort of daze. His eyes were glazed over and he wasn't saying anything. We were yelling, but it was like he couldn't hear us. Jamie, he pointed his gun at Wes. Shay and I screamed, and Jessie was able to wrestle the gun from him. Hunter snapped out of it and said he didn't remember a thing. He is sleeping now and hasn't gotten up. Shay and I had a heart-to-heart and agreed that he needs to see the doctor ASAP. Jamie, I cannot get hold of Dr. Gold. Shay tried to look her up, and there isn't even a Rebecca Gold psychiatric MD registered in the state of Virginia. Something's wrong here. I'm sorry, but could you possibly come pick me up this weekend, if you aren't too busy? Aubrey. From Aubrey E. Garton to Jamie A. Garton. 9th of March 2020. 7:03 p.m. Jamie, we need to talk. Please call me ASAP. I can't get hold of you, or anyone. Is there a reason you aren't responding to me? From Aubrey E. Garton to Jamie A. Garton. 10th of March 2020. 3:43 a.m. Jamie, please, I need you. Hunter is gone. He took the guns and the dog. None of this makes any sense. Wes and Jessie went looking for them and didn't come back. I heard gunshots. I'm scared. Shay and I locked the doors and are hiding. We can't call the police. The phones won't work. Jamie, I need you. Please respond. From Aubrey E. Garton to Jamie A. Garton. 10th of March, 4:04 a.m. Shadow Creek Mountain. The cabin, the woods. It isn't real. None of it. The fog. It's coming from pipes in the ground. The pipe's in the woods. I can't see anything. We can't leave. The cars won't turn on. Jessie and Wes are dead. I pray you get these messages, Jamie. I'm sorry. I love you. From Aubrey E. Garton to Jamie A. Garton. 10th of March, 4:22 a.m. It's too late. They are coming. The woods. There's too many. They're everywhere. Goodbye, Jamie. That's the last of the messages. I'm going to Virginia to search for my sister. And I'm begging again, if anyone has information on Shadow Creek Mountain, to please help me. And that's that for part 1. And this is part 2. Aubrey's last email was dated March the 10th. This may be the last communication I ever have with my baby sister. After scouring through every text, email, voicemails she has left me in the past 6 months, I was able to piece together her path to Shadow Creek Mountain. I cannot help but feel as though these virtual breadcrumbs will lead me to the centre of the labyrinth, the lair at which an ominous creature waits with an insatiable hunger and gluttonous eyes. I left my DC apartment and embarked on my lone journey to in the middle of the night. I entered the town at approximately 6:30 a.m. I emphasize town, as Shadow Creek is nothing more than a faux settlement of plywood structures, fabricated homes, and boarded up skeletons of businesses and restaurants that pales in comparison to even the cheapest film set. One could call it a ghost town. This, however, would suggest that it was once occupied with the intention of permanent settlement and growth. The only stop I made before reaching the cabin was to Harrington's Market, the store which Aubrey mentioned her encounter with Mary Ann. Although the double doors in the front had been chained, the side entrance was left ajar, swinging back and forth in the breeze, suggesting someone had departed with haste. Inside, I found myself overwhelmed with the foul must of sawdust and unknown chemicals. The barren shelves and flickering fluorescent bulbs hummed dully as I searched for any clue, any remote sign of life. As I scoured the aisles, I couldn't help but feel as though my every move was being monitored by unseen eyes. Just before I abandoned the search within Harrington's, a faint noise broke the monotonous buzzing of lights. A slight burst of radio static coming from a back room. I cautiously walked into what initially appeared to be a storage area. I quickly discovered several oddities within. This room's decor differed greatly from Harrington's early 1990s linoleum floor, asbestos ceiling, and pale yellow walls. This was modern. Countless monitors and 4-post data racks were lined against the back corner. What stood out the most, however, were the 25 or so crates of stainless steel gas canisters with the letters Atlas printed on the side. On the adjacent wall was a large topographical map of the area. Near the centre of the map was a unique marker, a single red pin amongst a sea of white, showing me the exact location to where the search for Aubrey. As I left the store and walked to my car, the dreadful feeling of being watched increased. Just before hearing the side door I had exited 30 seconds prior slammed shut, and echoed down the barren street. I got into my car as quickly as I could and sped back down to the unpaved mountain road. I pulled onto the gravel lot of Hunter's cabin around 8:45 a.m. The dwelling and surrounding area appeared to be undisturbed. There were no tire tracks, footprints, snapped twigs, or any other indication of recent movement or life. The inside of the cabin was stripped bare, save for the furniture and appliances, all of which were spotless. Had I not noticed that only 3 of the lights were working, as Aubrey suggested in her email, I would have debated on whether I had the correct cabin. Soon after my arrival, a dense fog rolled in from the surrounding woods, engulfing the property in billowing grey clouds. When I wiped the condensation it left on my glass with my shirt, I noticed a pale green stain being left behind. Despite the current scenario and the hollow hostility of the town, I can understand the attraction Aubrey felt for this place and her desire to move here. Oddly, I have found myself suddenly overcome with sporadic feelings of content. The cabin had undoubtedly been swept before my arrival, erasing all signs of its inhabitants and visitors. All signs but one. Around back, I found a fire pit littered with cold, grey ash and speckled bits of black. I sifted through the char and splintered fragments. I found the melted remains of 5 phones, all of which had been destroyed beyond the possibility of any useful data recovery. When I stepped back into the cabin, I was overwhelmed with exhaustion. After a few moments, I completely lost consciousness on the floor. I dreamt of my sister. She was calling me to follow her into the endless wooded hills. I followed her voice to the base of the mountain and discovered her facing away from me, dressed in white and pointing to the tall summit. As I reached out to grab her, she disappeared in my arms, leaving behind a silhouette of pale green fog. I awoke on the dusty hardwood in a cold sweat, gasping for air. In the distance, a faint howling echoed through the trees. A familiar howl, one I had heard so many times before, even when Gunnar was just a few months old. I opened the door and peered out into the darkness, only to come to 2 horrifying realizations. The first being the disappearance of my vehicle and only form of transportation. The second was the tray of baked goods at the doorstep, with a note that welcomed Jamie Garton to the lovely town of Shadow Creek Mountain. I closed and locked the door quickly as I had opened it. The sun is beginning to set, and I am trapped here. I've noticed my phone losing its signal for hours at a time. I've been trying to reach the authorities, but have only been able to reach a cheery-voiced, endless recording asking me to please hold and enjoy the beautiful scenery of Shadow Creek Mountain in the meantime. Even if I do reach someone, it won't matter. No one has been able to help me, or seems to even care about my missing sister or her friends. The fog is rolling in again. It seems thicker now. I'm exhausted. It's almost peaceful in a way. I feel better, like everything will eventually work out and it's going to be okay. I will search for my sister in the morning, but for now, I think I will sleep. That's it. Fuck, what's it called? There you go, Rizla. Yeah. No. Silence. Yes. So it started because Rizla likes, what's that wrestler's name? The one that's always going like, woo! Fuck. I literally found a fucking scary story about it and all for him. Yes, Ric Flair. Thank you, Tia. Thank you, Little Wolf. That's it. So, Rizla loves Ric Flair, right? It's a thing. And I can't remember how he got on it, but he wanted entrance music. And then it went to an agreement that I will play Ric Flair entrance music for him, but only if it's a kazoo one. And yeah, now it's a thing. Probably not a good decision on my part, but I'm not exactly famous for making fucking smart decisions about myself or my life. So, yeah, that's a whole ass thing. Right, I'm going to read the last one, and then Slim, the living cyborg, is actually streaming at the moment, and I believe it may finally be the long awaited talk about it later stream, where all the stories that he said, well, we'll talk about it later, he actually tells us those stories. So there's going to be a lot of random fucked up stories involving sex, drugs, debauchery, body modification, sword swallowing, tattoos, general drunken antics, madness and mayhem, and all the fun, interesting stuff. So I'm going to read this and then send you all over there, because Sim is an absolute fucking legend. He really is. He's an absolute sweetheart, nicest guy ever. So yeah, last one from No Sleep, and it's by the user The Outer Realms. Good point, Captain Cactus. Problem is, it's taken me a long time to start learning from my bad decisions. Starting, Starting. Yeah, it is called an open invitation. Oh wow, there's like 25 things. I thought there'd be more. Ooh. So, an open invitation. Greetings and salutations, friends. If you're reading this, it's already too late. Not for me, of course. I'm beyond such trivial things as mortality. No, silly. I meant for you. I know what you're thinking. What a load of nonsense, right? Of course, you're more than welcome to think what you want. Go on, go back out of this thread. Go back to your empty life that you keep trying to fill. Just before you do, I'd like you to know this. I know you. I see you. I hear you. I feel you. I smell you. Every one of my senses is attuned to you. And I don't lose a scent once I've latched onto it. Still here? I guess I've managed to hold on to that pathetic thing you call an attention span. Now, let's talk a little about me. I so rarely get to do that. The who I am is less important. You won't know my name. You'll never have heard of me. So the who doesn't really matter. You can call me Ipku if you feel the gnawing discomfort of not being able to give me a title. No, what matters is the what and the where. The what of I am is difficult, at least to explain to a creature such as yourself. You see, I exist beyond what you're able to perceive. And I'm not alone here. In fact, I'm actually on the younger, less terrifying side of what stalks the outer realms. You hold so dearly to your reality, clambering to grasp whatever you can that keeps you sane. What strikes me as beautifully ironic is that so much of what you're grasping is to things that show such a distorted version of your reality. Television, films, social media, all so packed with lies and deception, and yet you cling to these pathetic vestiges of your broken, fractured dreams. Sorry, went off track a little there. Where were we? Oh yes, me. Little old me, just a tiny cog in the great machine that warps your realm. What I am is a stalker, a watcher in the night. My function in the great machine is to ensure all is running smoothly. The purpose of the machine eludes me, but I do not exist to question. I exist as a function of the machine. The where, as I previously stated, is the outer realms. You exist on the tiniest sliver of the inconsequential plane of the inner realms. The name inner and outer are an odd choice considering all the realms overlap entirely. There's no distance between me and you, as it were. I'm right here with you, always have been. Finally, we have the all-important question, why? Why am I reaching out to you now? Well, it's quite simple really. I'm bored. For millennia I have watched over the denizens of the inner realm and always ensure the great work is operating to whatever plan the machinators beyond my scope have. Now I thirst for more. I wish to sow chaos, plant the seed of despair and feast on what I reap. Every person that reads this, that knows of my existence, brings me one step closer to breaking through the thin veil between our realms. So, from the bottom of what constitutes a heart in my biological makeup, thank you. You are part of what will set me free to pursue my life's own great work. And remember, I know you. I see you. I hear you. I feel you. I smell you. And I'm coming for you. I quite liked that one. Right, and on that note, Mr. Slim, the cyborg, is giving out his own little stories around his whole we'll talk about that later. So again, for all the fun stories of drunken debauchery, fun, antics, sword swallowing, freak showish goodness, all the fun stuff, yeah, go over there. Mango's over there and Tiny Captain at the moment. So that will be fun. And yeah, I should be back to do the scary stories next week. I might be playing some like game demos of scary games that I found tomorrow, maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, we shall see. I'm not on loads at the moment because one, my mental health took an absolute crap shoot recently. And yeah, I needed to take a step back and like chill the fuck out with streaming constantly because covering Bond didn't really fuck with my head so much. Like that shit doesn't bother me. I just have bouts of up and down depression. Now I always have done since I was like a fucking teenager. It's nothing serious. It's just everything becomes a bit meh. It's a sea of meh. And yeah, so like I was like, no, I need to actually break out of this. This is not good to just kind of dwell in that. So I've been trying to actually do that sort of shit and, be proactive with my head fuckery. So, yeah. Anyway, don't care. Don't want to talk about it too much anyway. But hopefully see you next week, if not sooner. Yeah, I should, but I keep my mind so busy so I don't have to think, and then I burn myself out. And I've always done that because I don't want to be left alone with my own thoughts. But yeah, it's nothing serious. It's not like I'm like fucking suicidal or anything. So like it's actually not a worrisome one. So please don't anyone think like be worried for me. But yeah. I shall see you over at Slim's because I want to hear what the hell he's going to talk about later. I really do. So on that absolute cheering note, bye. Have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day.